So you're thinking about buying your first home or purchasing another property. If the thought of navigating mortgages, finding a loan officer has you a little stressed, you're not alone. In today's episode, I will be interviewing a loan officer who will be helping us tonight by answering this question and any that you have. But before I do, I need to introduce myself. My name is Shri, and I'm a social media manager who helps doctors and lawyers gain an edge online. We help build a social media presence that attracts and retains clients. My guest is a loan officer, Frank Saraco, who has helped many new first-time home buyers, along with those who are looking to purchase another property. And before I bring him up, I do want to say I just want to thank you to everybody who has shared love, like sent me messages during this time as I am slowly picking myself up and getting back on my feet with everything, the loss of my father. I just want to say the community means so much. If you are not building a community, if you're not posting online and you're feeling alone, you really need to just reach out. I'm here. I'm always willing to talk to people, but at the same time, just know you are not alone. So let's get into this. I have Frank here who's going to be with us. So, Frank,
Hey,
I want to say thank you for joining us tonight, but I got to know this. When you are not talking about loans, real estate, what do you do for fun?
what do I do for fun? Um, I really gotta search for a hobby. I don't have a hobby anymore. I have two little kids. I run a business. I mean, I enjoy, getting out with some friends, like, most people. Um, like sports. I'm a sports guy, so and we've had these conversations before, right? I'm still a little heartbroken over my Yankees, but hey, the Astros didn't even make it, right? So I just try to occupy my time. I got back into the gym recently, so I try to eat a little healthy. Dedicate a little time to fitness and self care, and yeah. But I need a hobby.
Okay, if you are joining in on the live or the replay, share in the comments some of your hobbies so we can help Frank get a new hobby because, we need to do that.
Yeah.
But
I,
let's
oh, I
get
will tell you something. So about 6 or 7 months ago, I got this urge to start skateboarding again.
Ooh, that's a good one. Just you
Yeah,
gotta it's a little different now. You gotta be a little
yeah. I
careful.
found out real quick. 47 years old, you hit the pavement. It's not like when you're 14.
No, and it's okay. So I will say this there's this reel on Instagram that talks about those who are, our generation and
Yeah,
how we are survivors. Because you talk about, there were no helmets when we rode bikes, when
yeah,
we were playing on the swing set. It was like all for one for all, the
yeah,
concrete was all we had.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's a little bit different now as you
We
age.
survived, right? Yeah, I love when I see those posts where people like, you guys are worried about bottled water and what brand you're drinking. Like we used to drink from a hose. And
Right?
it wasn't even my hose. It was like a random neighbor as we're, walking through the neyborhood and see a hose. It's like, shit, I'm thirsty. Let me turn on this guy's hose.
And you had a watch person that was watching, making sure like, hey, we're safe.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
okay, we're not all going to be talking about these memorable times. Let's get into this because this
Sure.
is kind of important. And this topic is, as first off, it's like, okay, there's so much going on in the market. There's so much going on in the economy. But before we have anybody come in and ask their questions, who is Frank? So, what drew you to the real estate industry? Why did you focus on, how did you get into loans and mortgages? That's the question.
Sure. So when I got out of college, I was working for Chase Bank. I was not doing mortgages. I was doing like small business banking and credit card systems and things like that. And I had some friends that were got on mortgages and they were doing pretty well. And I kind of did it to start as a little side gig. And I was like, all right, I'm young. I just got out of school. And I had a couple good years. At my age, I was doing great. My income was great. But, it's, you always want more. So I saw what these guys were doing. And I said, let me kind of get in, dabble in this a little bit. And I got into it. And then I realized like how lucrative it really could be. And this was in the early 2000s. So I've been in the business for a while now. And when I got into the business, it was I was in wholesale subprime. So when you kind of watch some of these movies, like The Big Short or Too Big to Fail and things like that, and about like the housing crash and real estate market crash in the mid 2000s, 2008, 2009, I lived that. I went through that whole thing, and I just always thought that it was a really big, if not the biggest, financial decision that most people are going to make, right? Buying a home. And look, I didn't graduate from Harvard. I don't have doctorates and multiple degrees and things like that. And I just felt like it was a very respectable business to be in. You're helping promote homeownership, and you're helping to navigate people through, again, probably the largest financial decision of their life. Most people. So I really liked it. I thought the money was great, obviously, at that time, but then I, really got hit hard. I mean, when the market crashed, I went from here to here, and it was humbling. And I got out of the business for a bit. I went into some different ventures, and I always missed it. I was like, I like mortgages. I like what I was doing, and I got back in, and no looking back.
I do want to bring up, you talked about the mortgages crashing.
Hmm.
Some people will be asking, who's watching this, do you feel like that trend is kind of happening right now in today's
No,
market?
no, very very different set of circumstances. So when we had the real estate crash, back in the 2000s, there was I was trying to explain this to a friend of mine the other day. It's legitimately like economics 101, supply and demand. It's that simple. I mean, you don't even have to talk about anything more than supply and demand. When the market crashed, there was an abundance of supply. So it was too much supply and there wasn't enough demand. So that drives prices down fast. Depending on how lopsided that equation is, drives prices down real fast. We have the complete opposite now. We have no homes, and we have everybody that wants to buy a home. And it's not going to crash. It's going to continue to rise. It may not appreciate at the same levels it has been. I mean, COVID was, something so unique. It's never going to happen again. I mean, something else could happen, but that whole thing drove this machine like it's never been done before, right? So everybody wanted to buy a home, and people still want to buy homes. The only problem is right now everybody can't afford it,
Mm.
and I just think that that's an unfortunate reality because there is a lot of money in this country. There's a lot of money in certain markets. So unless we get more supply, it's not going to change the price of homes. It's funny. I don't want to get into politics, but one of the things where it was like, hey, we're going to build all these houses, that can actually hurt the value of your home for people who do own homes. Because what are
Mm.
you doing? You're increasing the supply. If you make home ownership affordable or available to everybody, that can actually take prices down. But it's not going to happen.
You brought up a really good point about people don't have the money.
Hmm.
Okay, so I've never bought a home. I'm
Hmm.
45 and I've never bought a home. And it's not, hey guys, it's not that I didn't want to. I actually want to. I mean, I want to buy property. I know its value. I have paid off a home. This house that I'm in right now, my parents, God made it possible and paid off their home. So I know what it's like to pay off a home.
Yeah.
But for someone like myself, or someone who's watching this live or replay, when they think about, okay, what do I need to do about buying a home? So, what's one of the biggest misconception first time buyers have when it comes to buying a home or a mortgage?
Yeah. So it's a great question, and I get asked it all the time. Anytime I ever speak, in public or live or, do some type of forum, I'm so surprised that so many people, such a high percentage of people, don't realize how easy it is to actually buy a home. You do not need an 800 credit score. You do not need to have 20% down. Like it is just, it's not needed. You could buy a house depending on what type of loan program you're going into. You could buy it with no money down. Veterans, no money down. You know how many veterans don't know that a VA loan, depending on their eligibility, like they could do 0%, zero. Like it's almost no money out of pocket. FHA government loans. Federal Housing Administration created these loans to promote homeownership. It's like 3.5% down. So 3.5% is not a hell of a lot of money. You don't need 20%. And there's just a ton of misconceptions out there. Oh, if I don't have 20%, I'm going to have horrible financing. That's not true either. You can put down a regular, conventional loan as little as 3%. So, oh, well, I'm going to have that mortgage insurance, that PMI thing. Yeah, but depending on your situation, it might not be a lot of money.
What's a
Sometimes,
PMI? First off, before we go, what's a
yeah.
PMI?
So,
Because
so
like someone
PMI
like me,
is
I don't know what a PMI is.
so if you put less than 20% down, you have mortgage insurance. It's required, right? So as a bank, as a lender, we're going to require that you have mortgage insurance in case of a default, right? We want to make sure that we don't get screwed for lending you all this money. But depending on your credit profile, it might be literally peanuts, like 45, $50. I mean, it could be a lot higher. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say for everybody out there, mortgage insurance is 40, $50. But there's ways that you figure it out. There's factors like credit scores, loan amounts, percentage down, loan programs. I mean, you know, you're gonna not buy a home. I'm gonna give you a real simple situation, right? You're not gonna buy a home for $400,000, whatever. Let's just say that's the number, because you don't have 80 grand to put down, which is 20%. But in reality, you have whatever. Let's say you have 5%. Let's say you have 20 grand. Okay. And you're like, oh, well, I'm going to have mortgage insurance. That it might be 50, $60, $70, $150. So you're stopping yourself from buying a home because you're falling so short of that 80. You only got 20. But in reality, it doesn't matter. You could still buy a home, right? And then you have programs that offer down payment assistance. There's government programs out there. There's a ton of different things, community lending programs. They offer down payment assistance. So you only got 20 grand, but they're going to give you another 10 or another 15, So home ownership is not hard. My advice is if you've ever thought about owning a home, contact a loan officer, talk to them about your specific situation and see if there's some, solutions for you. Because the biggest misconception is I need to have an 800 credit score and I need to have a large down payment. Not true at all.
We've got some comments in the comments, and I'm going to
Sure.
share them. This is Robert Berry. If no one can buy, the inventory will sit on the market, or corporations will buy, and the inventory will sit on the market. Either way, homes sitting on the market vacant is still not a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, a home sitting on the market vacant is not a good thing. But there is a market for it, right? People do want to buy, and it might not be person number one, but it might be person number two. And this is actually also how values go up and down. If it sits on a market and nobody wants to buy it, what do you got to do? Common sense. You got to lower the price, right?
We Right. I agree. You got to
Yeah,
lower the price, or you got to figure out a way, or you might want to call Frank.
yeah,
Timothy Gleason, CPA, says the key is the ability to service the repayments. And then Robert has another question. He says, could you piggyback to eliminate PMI?
yeah. So I mean, I think what Timothy is saying is he's saying the ability to service the repayments. Um, yeah, I mean, client has to be able to afford it, right? Nobody
Right.
should ever buy a home that they can't afford. One of the first conversations I have with people is, what's your budget? What are you prepared to spend? And then turn around and say, well, this is what it's going to really cost. Is that okay with you? Because you shouldn't be overextending yourself on anything, right? You shouldn't be doing it on a car. If you can't afford, an $800 car payment, you shouldn't be getting an $800 a month car. It's pretty simple. So yeah, I mean, obviously they need to be able to afford it. And to Robert, I mean, yes, you absolutely can do a piggyback, 1,000%. There are tons of different solutions, but it also might not make sense. So, a second mortgage is typically higher in interest rate than a first mortgage, which may be far more than what the PMI payment is. But yes, you can do it.
You talk about like options because you mentioned it right now. There are options out there. So
Mhm.
for someone who's thinking about, what are some things that I can do right now in terms of, okay, I know I'm not going to buy a house that's outside of my league. I'm going to stick
Mhm.
to, because you said, I have conversations. What are those conversations of options that people are surprised to find out they have that they can start working on, or they just need to call you?
Yes, I think. I mean, listen, I would love for everybody to call me, right? But in reality, just call somebody who's in the business, who's a professional. Seek a professional in your area, or somebody who has a large enough footprint to handle your area. Um, you know, a lot of times I work with clients for years, and I don't mean they have to be repeat clients for years. I mean, you meet with somebody, you discuss their situation. They might not be ready yet, but they need to get put on a roadmap, right? So it's never too early. If you're thinking about it, you pick up the phone and you talk to somebody, and you kind of see what you're dealing with. Um, Look, if I'm in the business for a long time, and there are people who are also very well educated and experienced in this business. Obviously, tons of us, right? But we know more than when it comes to buying a home than almost anybody else, right? So you're talking to a credit repair person who says, "Oh, we got to get your credit score up and this and that." You might not need to. And a lot of times, I look at people and it's like, "Do you know if you just paid down these two little $500 credit cards to 20% usage, your score is going to go up?" And you're like, "What do you mean? I thought I have to pay off this student loan that I have for 100 grand." I'm like, "No, it's totally different the way that affects your credit score. Usage is one of the worst things you can have. So if you're like you got $1,000 limit and you owe $999, right? That's 99% usage. If you pay that off and go down to like $200, now you're at 20% usage. Big difference. It's the same thing on a higher credit limit. So if you have a credit card for $10,000 and you owe, let's say 5 or 6 grand, right? And you're like, "Oh, I got to pay off this 5 grand." No, you don't. You're actually only at 50, 60% usage. So you can look at these things, these smaller cards. There's so many different ways to get put on a game, on a roadmap and set a game plan for the future. You just have to talk to somebody. And sometimes this plan takes a while, right?
I love that you brought that up because it feels like, here I am, I'm thinking about buying a property, but I feel like I have XYZ in the way. And the way you brought it, you explain it, the roadmap. Because
Mm-hmm.
think about it, we don't buy, some people can just go and buy a house today, but if you plan properly,
Mm-hmm.
you can definitely buy a house within the time frame that you're thinking about it. And
Yeah,
I love that you said get that roadmap. So if you're
absolutely.
so what areas are you able to help people? Because we have people that tune in from
Everywhere.
Texas,
Yeah,
okay, so
everywhere.
you're everywhere.
So cross country mortgage is licensed in all 50 states. I have multiple states licenses, but we have the opportunity to service clients pretty much everywhere.
There you go. So if you are looking for someone
Yeah.
who, if you're a new home buyer, definitely check out Frank. And I dropped his links in the comments, but I want to go into those who are, okay, I've already bought a house before, I'm on
Hmm.
my 20th property and
Doing good.
you're doing really good. But there comes a time where, they're looking for someone And what are common questions you get from someone like that who's been in the
Mhm.
game, has skin in the game, and
Mhm.
understands how things work? What is a common question you get that you can answer right now?
Yeah, that's a whole different animal, right? So somebody who's that experienced, they're looking for the right relationship. They're looking for a team, somebody that's got their back and is going to, just basically make the process seamless for them. They don't have the same questions and concerns. They're not going to ask questions that a first-time home buyer would. Um, they're going to understand that financing has many options because chances are they got there. Like you buy one home, you're not a cookie cutter. I'm not going to say because there's so many different variations, but people are first time home buyers. They're usually going into like a regular loan, regular conventional loan, or a government loan, or something like that. It doesn't really get like hairy, right? When you start to acquire multiple properties, you're going to have to show tax returns on all these properties. You have stuff in LLCs and corporations. You have losses on properties. You have vacant properties. They understand. So at that point in time, I think they're just looking for somebody or a team or a company that just got their shit together. It's that simple. So it's very different. And those people, as funny as it sounds, those investors, they don't have the same concerns that a first time home buyer does. To them, it's a business. So like, I'm not going to say they don't care about interest rates, but it's so much lower on the totem pole. Like it's just we got to get this property. Right? And they want to make sure that they have a team that they're working with or people that they're working with that just got their back. And if they just feel comfortable, it's good. So it's so different. The questioning is so different.
I'm also thinking about, okay, if I bought like a multiple properties and
Mhm.
I've had so much the knowledge, right? You want to know that you understand that you can get through, because I can imagine at this point you found intricate ways to buy a property legally. And
Mhm. Sure.
so what's been like the craziest that you've experienced so far?
Oh, I mean, are we talking like now or we're talking 20 years ago?
We will talk about the experience because I know first time
Yeah.
home buyers are going to have interesting stories, but this is for the experienced person who's looking for that new team because maybe the loan
Yeah.
person that they were working with screwed them over. We don't know. Something happened and they're on the market.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's so many different things that come to mind. I would think that some of the craziest stuff that I've seen is just how people think that they can kind of get over and conceal. And what I would say is especially people with multiple properties, you know there is zero way to lie to me. I'm going to find it out. My team's going to find it out. It's so different than things were 20 years ago, right? I mean, think about it. Just 20 years ago, we didn't have the same technology. I mean, nowadays I can find anything on anybody. When you're doing a loan, we know everything about your credit. We can run multiple reports that tell us if you're connected to other properties. Um, it's just there's no way to hide. So I think that some of the crazy stuff that we run into is when people just think that they can be smarter than the bank. And I'm like, yo, it's not happening anymore. In 99 or 2000, 2001, you could probably say, oh, I work here. I make this amount of money. It doesn't work like that. Even when we verify people's employments, like the old days, well, I mean, we still do call like their employer, right, to reach out to the employer and try to get some documentation. But so many times it's just done online. You just go in digitally and it's like, oh, Frank works here. This is how much money he makes. This is when he started working here. This is when he stopped working here. You're not going to lie to me because the companies take part in that technology to make their life easier. Right. So I would say one of the biggest things is just in general, without specific examples, when people think they can get over on the bank, it doesn't happen these days. Can't do it. Don't do it. Don't waste my time. You get fired.
That's a good one because while a new home buyer may not think of that, but they
Mhm.
might because they want to pull, they're just like, I just want this home. for the investor, the person that this is their business, they're like, what can we do so that
Yeah.
we don't get caught?
So you want my line? I'll give you my line when I talk to a new client. I'm like, I'm not ICE. I'm not the IRS. I'm not the police. I'm not your ex-wife or your ex-husband or whatever. Just tell me what your situation is, and I'm going to tell you if we can work through it. I'm going to tell you if there's a solution, because there is so many different types of financing available, so many different loan programs, so many different options. And like I said, if you don't fit right now, screw it. We're going to set you up for 6 months from now or a year from now. So yeah, I tell them all the time. I'm like, just don't lie to me, man.
That's a good one, because you know what? We can't. I mean, even myself, I'm always like, just understand. I'm going to get you on camera. Everybody gets on camera when you work with me. I don't care. You don't like the way you look. I don't like the way I look. You feel like you gained weight. Let me show you how I looked 4 years ago and now. There's a
Yeah.
difference. So we're just going to get through this, and we're going to work through it. And if you can't handle it, then I'll
Yeah.
fire you.
I
But
love when. Did I ever tell you about the first time that I went on social? I had no social, nothing. So
okay.
Mario, our mutual friend, literally was like, "Dude, what are you doing? Like, I need you to do this. I need you to do this. I need you to do this." I said, "Oh, I have to, got to get a haircut. I don't know, like stupid. I was just making excuses. I need better lighting. I need a better camera." He's like, "Give me a phone for a second." He took the phone. He went. He goes, "What's your Instagram password?" I said, "I don't know. It's stored in there." He like stuck it up to my face. He said, "Look at this." So it unlocked it, And he was like, He goes, "Okay, you posted." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I posted." He's like, "Stop." And you're so critical about it, right, in the beginning, and then I could care less. I could care less what I'm wearing, if my hair's done, if it's not. Like, it's just hop on and do it.
Plus, with AI, there's so many ways to make you look all sharp. Or you can go live and have look like you have at least a little bit of makeup. Maybe not for
There's
you,
no
but it can look
no
like
AI
you
here.
have a
This is
hat.
me. This is me. There's no AI.
Well, I want to make sure everybody knows what are ways that they can connect with you. So if they are in the market, whether it's to buy a new home
Mhm.
or they're looking to expand their portfolio, looking for a new team.
Sure. So, I mean, social platforms, Frank Saraco, plain and simple. FrankSaraco. Uniform against all platforms. My website's Get Approved by Frank. I know it sounds silly, but for so many years, I would have to like tell somebody, "Hey, let me email you or let me text you," my website. And it was this big, long, drawn out website landing page, whatever. And I just called up and I was like, "Guys, I need a vanity. I need to just change it." And I came up with Get Approved by Frank. So getapprovedbyfrank.com. I'm always down to connect with anybody, chat about anything. Hopefully, I can help solve a problem, because that's really what we get paid for, right? Solving problems.
There, you said it best. I've also dropped it in the comments if you are here on
Mhm.
LinkedIn, and I will go back and put it on the platforms we're going live. And then
Mhm.
this actual podcast episode will be tomorrow's podcast. Guys, I had tried, true story. I usually have a podcast that drops every Thursday. And for some reason, it's the first week that I'm coming back from everything. And I struggle bus. Like, for anybody who sits there and says, like, I'm superwoman. I don't, even though I lost my loved one, I can come back. They're lying, because this is this is not easy.
Yeah.
And I'm here to say, as each day gets better, things get easier. So if one thing is you're thinking about buying a home and you don't know where to start, just call Frank. I'm just telling you. Or if you're looking for a team, call Frank. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to end it here, and we're inviting you to come and join us on Instagram, where we'll continue this conversation. And if there's questions that you want to ask because you didn't want to ask here on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube, you can definitely ask on Instagram. And I just want to say thank you to everybody again for all of your love, your support during this time. And I want to thank Frank for joining us tonight, answering all these questions. And if you have questions, tell him you saw him on this episode or heard his podcast episode, and reach out, tell him, look, I have questions. I saw you here with Shri, and He will help you. And don't be a stalker. Just talk to him.
Thank you
Until
so
the
much.
You're very welcome. Until the next episode. Bye everybody.